Welcome back to this video. Today we are going to talk about the Form 4 Chapter 8 Part 1, the types of the respiratory system. And the outline of this video is that we're going to discuss on the adaptation of the respiratory structures for an efficient gas exchange and also what are the types of the different respiratory structures in different animals. So first, the adaptation for the respiratory structures. So for a large and complex organism such as a human, the volume of the body that requires oxygen will increase more than its total surface area. So this is explained by why the large and complex organism they cannot maintain the gaseous exchange by just diffusion through the skin. So a large and complex organism such as a human, we require a special respiratory structures or a respiratory system to help us to have an efficient gas exchange. Okay, so the organism that can use diffusion to exchange gases is the those very simple organisms such as unicellular organism, bacteria, protozoa, and etc. All right, so what are the features or what are the adaptation of the respiratory structures for a more efficient gaseous exchange? This is the overall adaptation. Later, we're going to go in details on each respiratory structures in different animals. So the first one, an efficient respiratory structures should have a large ratio of a total surface area to volume, which is abbreviated as a TSA per volume. All right, have a large ratio of a TSA and V. And next, a respiratory structures should also be thin. How thin is it? It should be one cell thick, okay, one cell thick, which is very thin. This is to allow the easy diffusion of respiratory gases. And next, the surface of the respiratory structures is always moist. Okay, it is always moist for gases to dissolve in them. Okay, so they are moist so that the gas, oxygen, or even carbon dioxide can dissolve in them, and this can fasten the process of the gaseous exchange. And lastly, the respiratory structures is complete with a network of the blood capillaries, okay, except for insects. But most of the mammals or even in human, like our lungs, inside our lungs we have alveoli, is always surrounded by a network of the blood capillaries, okay. So this is to allow for the efficient delivery of the respiratory gases. Okay, next we focus on the insect respiratory structures. So the insect actually uses the tracheal system. So there are small pores in the thorax and abdomen called spiracles, okay? And the spiracles will allow the spiracle, which are the small pores or the small holes at the abdomen and the thorax of the insect, will allow the air to go into the tracheal system. And then the trachea, when air move into the trachea, and the trachea will be branches out to form more finer tubes called a tracheals, okay, the tracheals. So the adaptation of the tracheals that make the respiratory structures more efficient is that the tracheal is having a large number of tracheals, okay? So this provides a large total surface area for gas exchange. And also the tracheal wall is always thin and moist. And also in the tracheal system of the insect, they always have these air sacs. They have lots of the air sacs inside the tracheal system of the insect. So this air sacs is always filled with air to speed up the delivery of the respiratory gases. So the function of the air sacs is to speed up the delivery of the respiratory gas. Okay, so this is a picture. This is a grasshopper, which is represent the insect, and you can see that we have lots of the air sacs here to speed up the gas exchange. And also we have the spiracles, which are the holes, the small pores that allows the air to go in. And then after we go into the spiracle, we go into the trachea, and the trachea will branches out to a more finer tubes known as a tracheals. All right, done with the insect. Then we're moving on to our fish respiratory structures. So a fish respiratory structures is actually gills, okay? They use gills to exchange the oxygen and carbon dioxide. So gills actually made up of a line of filament, okay? And also they are supported by a gill arch. They are supported by gill arch and they're made up of filaments. And the adaptation of gills that make them so efficient is that they're having a large number of thin and flat projections. And we call these projections as a lamella, okay? And these large numbers of lamella going to give a large total surface area for an efficient gas exchange. And the lamellar membrane is also very thin and is full of many blood supplies that allowed diffusions of the gases. Alright, as you can see, this is a fish and the gills will position here, and then when the air goes in, water flows and the air goes in, and then they will go through all these gill filaments, okay, and gaseous exchange going to occur here. And this is the gill arch that going to support the gills, okay. And you can see we have lots of the blood vessels here, always ready to help in the exchange of the gases. All right, lastly, we talk about the last animal, which is the frog respiratory structures. So the frog actually have two respiratory structures, okay? This is a bit special. And in active state means they are not in a movement. The frog going to use their skins, okay, for breathing. And the adaptation of the respiratory structures that make them so efficient for gaseous exchange is that the skin is very thin and they are highly permeable to respiratory gases, and they are moist as well. Okay, so all the adaptation that we talk about is actually same as the general adaptation that we mentioned earlier. Okay, so their thin skin and their moist skin always allows respiratory gases to dissolve, and also beneath the skin there are many network of the blood capillaries as well to transport the respiratory gases. And during movement, they do not use their skin. The frog do not use their skin. They will use their lungs for breathing, for respiration. So in lungs, the adaptation is that they're having a thin lung membrane to ease the diffusion of gases. And the lung wall is very moist to allow the gas to dissolve in them. And also the lungs also rich in a network of the blood capillaries. All right, so we recap of this today's video is that we talk about the adaptation, the general adaptation of respiratory structures for an efficient gas exchange, and we also talk about types of the different respiratory structures in animals, in insects, in frogs, and also in our fish. Okay, so that's all for today's video, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye bye.